Shalom. All praises to the Most High. All praises to His holy name. All praises to our great King. I was working on something else, and as I was looking for precepts for the message I was preparing, Yahweh Shai told me, stopped me in the midst of it and told me this is the message you want me to tell you. How do I know it was him told me that? Some of you will think man, he didn't tell you that. He did tell me. I'm going to prove it to you. As I was studying, preparing for the message I was telling you about, he stopped me in my tracks and he told me he showed me something. This information I'm about to share is a refresher. But before I came to the refresher, he stopped me in my track and showed me something that I had never seen before in the books of remembrance. And he told me to use this message. Now I'm going to prove to you because I don't rely on the Most High. Let me prove to you he told me to do it. John 6:63 through 70. It is the spirit that quickeneth. The flesh profited nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit, and they are life. So it's possible that my flesh prepared a message, but he spoke to me and quickened me with a new message. But there are some of you that believe not. For Yahweh Shai knew from the beginning who they were that believed not, and who should betray him. And he said, therefore said I unto you, that no man come unto me except it were given unto him of my Father. From that time, many of the disciples went back and walked no more with him. Then said Yahweh Shai unto the 12, will you also go away? Then Peter answered him, Yahweh Shai, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. And we believe and are sure that you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Yahweh Shai answered them, have not I chosen you 12, and one of you is a devil? This is the furthermore of the truth. If he told me right now to preach this message, or teach this message. Revelation 19:13. He was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. So first of all, his spirit, he is spirit in his life, his spirit, and his word told me to tell you that. Because that's where I'm getting it from, his word, based on the spirit. His word is spirit in his life. So I didn't lie to you. So told you just a refresher for some, for many, and some may be new if you're watching for the first time. So let me go here first before I go here so I can prove to you again. This is the sealed portion. chapter 81, verse 41. But in the beginning, it was not so. So a lot of people are trying to tell you that we came from Africa, from the East. But in the beginning, it was not so. And I have shown unto you that the record of my fathers shall come forth unto Joseph, and he shall translate the part which is unsealed, and of the works of the Father which was wrought upon the land of Eden, which is this promised land, which should be called in the latter days the United States of America, setting the foundation. So we see that this America that we are, this is the promised land. This is Eden. Not Edom, but Eden. The land of milk and honey. So, we'll take you to, and if you listen carefully, Yahweh Shai through the Spirit will tell you who this devil is, who Lucifer is, and that I heard somebody say before that the devil and Lucifer is not racist. He is an equal opportunity destroyer, and that's the truth too. But he does hate a particular people more than he hates everybody else. It's based on race, oppression, and racism. And I'm going to read it to you out of the rocks that's crying out. That Yahweh Shai showed me to share with you. Got a review. Grandmothers, chapter 1, verse 99 till I stop. And it came to pass that as I sat pondering these things, you got to remember back in these times, everybody was brown or dark brown skin. But over time, certain people grew pale. But you can still know who they are based on their fruit before they grew pale. Grandmother's 1 and 99. And it came to pass, once again, a disclaimer, if you are sensitive to racial truths and based on not the word of the Most High, Yahweh Shai himself, and assisting information that supports what he says, and you don't like that truth, even though it is the truth and you just don't like it, don't watch the video. That's a disclaimer. But if you don't listen, this is the truth. He said, for my word is truth, is life, spirit, and it's truth. And it came to pass that I sat pondering these things. I could see that the children of Yasakat, that's Adam, and Kava, that's Eve, were the very first indigenous people whenever they spread themselves. All right, indigenous people. We'll go to this book here. There's a support of the truth called Revealing America's Dark-Skinned Past, Volume 2, Columbian Era, Red Silver Fox Thunderbird. I'm just going to read page 9 for you. One of the most prevalent fallacies in North America history is the story surrounding Christopher Columbus and the people he encountered. It is interesting to note that early 20th century histories were stating that Christopher Columbus was trying to prove that the world was round. However, late 19th century historical writings on Columbus, not school textbooks, make no mention of this revelation. They do, however, tell in great detail of the carnage that took place on the islands during Columbus' reign. They also describe in detail of the hospitableness of the indigenous people. Same word that's used in this describing Adam and his children. So you could say they describing Adam the same way the Book of Remembrance of our ancient grandmothers is describing Adam, indigenous. The general nature of the indigenous people, same as they say about Adam. This is until they had to defend themselves. And that the indigenous people were considered Negroes. So when anybody got a problem with, they're trying to make Adam be, or even the Messiah, because he's called also the second Adam. Anything other than Negro, you kind of prejudiced or biased, and you don't tell the truth. The truth is not in you. Because the same way they described in this book here, Revealing America's Dark-Skinned Past, is the same term that they used in the Book of Remembrance of Ancient Grandmothers, describing these indigenous people who happen to be Adam and his progenitors after the second generation. And then it says that the indigenous people were considered Negroes. So we're going to go to Webster, 1828 American Dictionary. American, the description pertaining to America. American, now, a native of America. Originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. Let's see where the Europeans come from, according to Webster. European, descriptive pertaining to Europe. European, now a native of Europe. So how can the Europeans be a native of Europe and a native of America? We're just talking about knowledge, right? There's no offense in knowledge if it's just for knowledge's sake to tell the truth, right? See, if I was just making up stuff out of my mind out of a hateful heart with no information to back what I'm saying, then I can accept you being angry and mad at me. But if I'm using knowledge that comes from Europeans that support the scriptures, how can you be angry at me? So according to Webster, Europeans come from Europe. So let's go to race. By another definition by Webster. Race, noun. I'm going to use the first description. The lineage of a family or continued series of descendants from a parent who is called the stock. A race is the series of descendants indefinitely. They don't never change. Never. So if they came from Europe and they natives to Europe, that's where they came from, and that's where they're supposed to be at, according to Webster. So how you gonna be a native of Europe and then come and claim America? I'm just talking information. You intelligent. The lineage of a family or continued series of descendants from a parent who is called the stock. A race is the series of descendants indefinitely. Thus, all mankind are called the race of Adam. The Israelites are the race of Abraham and Jacob. I already explained to you before previously that the Most High made a difference between the rest of what they call man and the man that he's in his image. The man in his image are called Israelites. Thus we speak of a race of kings, a race of clovers, or Charlemagne, a race of nobles, etc. Then the Most High said this. In the Apocrypha. So are you mad at this truth, or are you mad that I'm reading it to you? That's my job to do it. He told me to prophesy. If I don't prophesy according to how he told me to prophesy, what do he need me for? Second Esdras 6:5-56, 6 and 56. As for the other people which come from Adam, back to race, according to Webster, the lineage of a family or continued series of descendants from a parent who is called the stock. A race is the series of descendants indefinitely. Thus all mankind are called the race of Adam, but there's two divisions of them. In the beginning, they were called, he said, two nations are in your womb. Speaking about Esau and Jacob. A race is, and this is all scriptural, so it is what it is. This is the Most High speaking. A race is the series of descendants indefinitely. Thus all mankind are called the race of Adam. The Israelites are the race of Abraham and Jacob. Thus we speak of a race of kings, a race of clovers, or Charlemagne, a race of nobles, etc. Second Esdras 6 and 56. As for the other people which also come of Adam, I'm talking about the Israelites are his people, made in his image. As for the other people which are also come of Adam, you have said that they are nothing. but be like unto spittle. And it's likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from the vessel. Second Esdras 7 and 11. Because for their sakes I made the world. And when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed that now he is done. He made the world for Israel. Lights. All right. American. Now, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. They came from Europe and came here and found us here. And then took it from our forefathers and said it was theirs. But now applied to the descendants of the Europeans born in America. Back to Red Silver Fox Thunderbirds, Revealing America's Dark-Skinned Past. Page 9. The Europeans also, they also describe in detail of the hospitableness of the indigenous people. The general nature of the indigenous people until they had to defend themselves, and that the indigenous people were considered Negroes. Eventually, in the retelling of this story, as history has a tendency to do, facts were being deleted. The man who changed modern history could not be depicted as a slaver, amongst other things. And most of all, the image of the indigenous people and the words and names used to describe them had to be changed to accommodate European interests and values. Let's go to another thing. Back to the Etymology Online Dictionary. And you notice that they changed the image of the helmet for the Washington Commanders, right? It used to be the Washington Redskins. And I had already mentioned to you before that one reason considering why they changed it, allegedly, I'm saying allegedly, is because whether you play for Washington or whatever team you play for, everybody on the field except for a few talented Europeans were Redskins. They look just like the other. So in other words, whether you play for Washington or whatever team you play for, you played for the Washington Redskins because everybody looked like that image on that helmet, except for the few talented Europeans. Redskin, noun, North American Indian, 1690s, from red plus skin. Not the preferred term, red as the skin color of a Native American. It's from 1580s. Red man, North American Indian, is also from 1580s. Go look at the Crayola, the original color of the red. It's actually just like brown. So they changed the image. They showed it to you in the beginning because they didn't think you was intelligent enough to figure it out. When people start figuring it out, then they changed the image and made the excuse that it was offending the $5 Indians. No disrespect, but that's just the truth. Now, it had nothing to do with disrespecting the $5 Indians who are Europeans. It was the fact that, quote unquote, Negroes were starting to discover that who that image really was on the side of that helmet. That's why they changed things a lot. They show it to you in plain sight until you figure it out. Then they change it. Look. I wasn't looking for that, but I have to turn to page 79 in this book called The One World Tertarians. This is quite not the Washington Redskins helmet, but these giants are wearing helmets. But I'm reading something that just stuck out to me as I turned the page to it. It says the monuments represented portraits of powerful individual Olmec rulers. Each of the known examples has a distinctive headdress. The heads were variously arranged in lines or groups at major Olmec centers. But the method and the logistics used to transport the stone to these sites remain unclear. They all display distinctive headgear. And one theory is that these were worn as protective helmets, maybe worn for war or to take part in a ceremonial Mesoamerican ball game. So is it possible that this ancient Mesoamerican ball game today is called the NFL? And they used the Mesoamerican image on the side of the Washington Redskins helmet before they changed it. Page 78. The NWO tells the story backwards. The Negro is the Indian or copper-colored indigenous people of the Americas, who is actually a redskin. Many think black people are black, yet there are many shades of copper, which is the color of the earth. If you look in old dictionaries, you will see that nigger and Indian were synonymous, and that colored is simply short for copper colored. And then Joseph had a dream, and his dad, Jacob, gave him a coat of many colors. Because, as he's explaining it to you in this statement, the colored is simply short for copper colored. Why do you think they keep changing our titles from India to Negro to colored African American? Now, in this sense, I'm not going to read that word because then I'm going to go into another era I'm not going to go into today. It says the quote unquote Negro is the most copied man on the earth. Page 78, midsection of the topic, it says Mexico is the original land of the American Negro, who is the Olmec, Altec, Toltec, etc. In North America, he is known as Eloquin, Choctaw, Ouachita, Pequot, Wampanoag, Lepe, Arauca, Iroquois, etc. And then you see here they tell a story that America was called America Vespucci. That's a lie too. Because before American Vespucci was even thought about, it was called Mesoamerica. Mesoamerican. It kind of really resembles to me Mexican American, Mexican America. I'm just saying to me. It says Mesoamerica, American. I hear an evil spirit that sounds like a European putting his 2 cents in the message. And you can't listen to no European liars, man. That's them the same people talking about they was first called. Some dude came over called what else his name was? America Basushi, whatever his name is. Can't even listen to people like that, man. They liars, man. This book say, though, it was called Mesoamerica. All right. Let me go back to Mesoamerica since I'm here. Setting the foundation. Now, if you're a European and you're not a liar, then, don't take it personal. I'm just saying, it's when it comes to knowledge about us, y'all got a history of lying. Let me go to indigenous before I go into this too. Webster. Back to Webster, indigenous. Indigenous, the description of indigenous. Native, born in a country, applied to persons. Native, produced naturally in a country, climate, not exotic. Applied to, well, that's not the wrong definition. I'll stick to part 1. Let's see aboriginal. Because you know that as Adam has described in the beginning, during his time, everybody, both the good and the wicked, were very brown-skinned people. The European, as you know them today, was not around. Aboriginal. It says sea origin. Origin. Now, the first existence or beginning of anything. As the origin of Rome in history, it is necessary. Then we found out the origin of Rome were also, they were dark skinned and they were considered Cherokees. They were the original Romans. According to One World Tutorials. Page 32. The Cherokee were the real Romans, and they built all of the Greco-Roman architecture and the Cherokee Gothic architecture in the Americas. So I'm just reading to you what it says, according to knowledge that's in books. Do your own research. So I'm not just making stuff up in my head. The first existence or beginning of anything as the origin of Rome. In history, it is necessary, if practical, to trace all events to their origin. And because I read that the first Romans were Cherokees, who were originally dark-skinned people, that's why I said allegedly, just based on rationale, when they talk about the Black Pope, in my mind, I say he probably is the real Black Pope. I ain't saying that's factual. I'm just saying just based on, putting two and two together. That's why he's never seen. They only show the quote unquote white Pope to do business. I'm just saying, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm saying that's just my rationale based on what I found out that they were first Cherokees. So I say allegedly. Origin, fountain, source, cause, that from which anything primarily proceeds. That which gives existence or beginning. The apostasy is believed to have been the origin of moral evil. The origin of many of our customs is lost in antiquity. Nations, like individuals, are ambitious to trace their descent from an honorable origin. That's why I tell you I'm an American Israelite. Because if the Most High say I'm an Israelite, you can't get no more honorable than what he say I am. And since this was the Garden of Eden here in America, I'm an original American. Even by Webster's definition. That supports what the Most High said. So I'll never give nobody credit over the Most High. All right. The Messiah in Ancient America. Warren Ferguson. I'm not gonna read all the book, but it opens up, and as soon as you open the book up, it has a little reading, and I'm gonna read it to you. Why do numerous Indian histories affirm so clearly that the fair god of Mesoamerica descended from heaven and taught them such things as love and virtue, the law of the fast, and the promise someday to return to them? How did the Indian people of Mesoamerica in the 14th century come to believe that their God, Quetzalcoatl, was crucified in AD 30 and resurrected 3 days later? How could Joseph Smith have known in the 1820s that at least 3 huge volcanoes in Mexico and El Salvador each erupted with gigantic destructive lava and ash that buried several cities at the time of the Savior's crucifixion? Why do the ancient sacred books of Mesoamerica, see, this is an ancient name. This name was around before America, quote unquote, Vespucci came here. Why do the ancient sacred books of Mesoamerica reflect knowledge of the Old Testament? How did the ancient people of Mesoamerica, as early as the 3rd century BC, have a very similar tree of life as found in the Old World? How could the complex knowledge of the planets, constellations, and associated deities have been so strikingly similar in ancient Mesoamerica and the Near East? How could high civilizations have sprung up in Mesoamerica beginning at the time of the Great Tower, approximately 2700 BC, paralleling closely the high civilizations of Mesoamerica, Mesopotamia? How could Joseph Smith in 1830 possibly have known so much about historical events and facts of Mesoamerica, which were not verified by the scientific community until many years after his death? The answer to these questions and many more are explained in the pages of this book. The evidence is conclusive, even overwhelming, connecting the Book of Mormon to recent scientific discoveries in Mesoamerica. This book is called, once again, The Messiah in Ancient America by Warren and Ferguson. All right, that's where I was at. All right, let's go back to Grandmother chapter 1. And we was at 99. It said the very first indigenous people, wherever we found out that was America, or Mesoamerica, were the very first indigenous people wherever they spread themselves. So once again, everybody that's in Israel, they keep trying to send the people back to Africa. We didn't come from Africa. That's why I got the right to self-identify. Most High called me an Israelite. And we found out the Garden of Eden for the indigenous people were in America. So since I'm in America, I didn't come from nowhere else but America. So that's why I say I'm an Israelite American based on what the Most High called me, based on knowledge in his books. Yahweh Shai told me that's who I am. Because he said he shall be called the Word of God. So that's why I told you who told me this information, Yahweh Shai. And it came to pass as I sat pondering these things, I could see that the children of Yasakad and Kava, Adam and Eve, were the very first indigenous people wherever they spread themselves. That's why they was all over the world. They went to They went to different places, including Africa, his children. And if they came from Africa, it's because they was taken from here. And upon their return, they came from Africa because they were returned back to where they came from. And they arrived at their destination without the skill and understanding and language that were developing with those who remained behind. And for some, I'm sure this disadvantage brought hardship into the lives of their people. And as I pondered, I began to realize that I had witnessed elements of racism. All right, we're going to come back there. Let's go see what racism is. Etymology Online Dictionary. Racism, noun. By 1928 in common use from 1935, originally in a European context. European context. Racial supremacy as a doctrine. That's what your churches preach you every Sunday. That's what your politicians preach to you. Racial supremacy as a doctrine. Because all of that's the same church. The theory that human characteristics and abilities are determined by race. See racist. Racist. Now, 1932 as an adjective from 1938 from race. We read race already. Is in the use by 1828, originally in the context fascist theories. In common from 1936, these words replaced earlier racialism and racialist. What is racialism? Let's see. See, they always trying to tell you they don't want you to be your tribe, but they want everybody to worship their tribe. Racialism is 1888 tribalism. What you mean tell me they using tribalism, but they don't want to tell you, they tell you can't have a tribe? And we're going to find out that this is what Satan was doing. He was doing tribalism. Just putting stuff together for you to kind of to realize. We're going to read about it. 1882, tribalism. 1890, political system of advocating superiority and exclusive rights based on race. Racial, adjective, description. So I already told you in the movie Batman versus Superman. Hollywood once again was telling you what they know the scripture to be. Lex Luthor told Batman, he said, do you know that he said Jehovah, but Yahweh. Do you not know that Yahweh is tribal? He takes sides. Racial, description of racial, relating, pertaining to, or characteristics of an ethnic race or race generally. Ism, word forming elements making nouns implying a practice, system, doctrine, etc. See, they putting their religious practice, system, doctrine on everybody. Particularly the quote unquote Negro. Source also of Italian, Spanish, ismo, Dutch, German, ismus, from Greek ismus, noun ending signifying the practice or teaching of a thing, from the stem of the verb isian, a verb forming element denoting the doing of the noun or adjective to which it is attached. Both often used earlier back in races, both often used earlier 20th century in a British or South African context. Afrikaan. There are isolated uses of racism from 1900s. Returning recently from a 6-month visit to Europe, the Reverend John Lafarge, noted Catholic writer, warned at a dinner given in his honor that the destructive forces of racism are increasing in the United States. This is Etymology Online Dictionary for racist. And that they could cause irreparable harm among the American people if immediate steps are not taken to combat them. I don't call nobody father, but just to read what he said, Father Lafarge said that American racism is directed principally against Negroes, Jews, and foreigners, all the same people. And we're the ones, this is our land. We just found out through knowledge that they came from Europe. They're the real foreigners. Told you, if you can't handle it, don't watch this, because I'm only using knowledge and information based on truth, the word of the Most High, and supporting documents, information that supports what he says. He described it as the pale but venomous cousin of Nazi racism. Why do they use the word pale? Like its Nazi counterpart, he added, it has erected impassable barriers between extensive regions and large groups of people, has formed its own myths and modeled its own social institutions, and above all has come constantly into conflict with Christian teachings. Well, he's going to use Christian because they are the Christians. Well, you always got to prove what you say, right? All right. Let's go to speaking about racism. The sealed portion, chapter 65, verse 2. And the true saints of God, the quote-unquote Negroes, who were his elect, were persecuted and slain by the hands of the Romans and by the consent of those leaders of Christian faith. So how can you have Christian teachings when they're persecuting the true saints of God? See, they're always interjecting their own words into our information. Those leaders of the Christian faith who had made alliances with the Romans and other governments of the earth. Like the Nazi counterparts, back to racists, he added that it was erected impassable barriers between extensive regions and large groups of people, has formed its own myths and modules, its own social institutions, and above all has come constantly into conflict with Christian teachings, Israelite teaching. If you're going to say it's in conflict with something, because they are the Christians. Opportunity Journal of Negro Life, volume 17, number 2, February 1939. February 1939. Earlier, race hatred, 1852 of the Balkans, 1858 of British India, 1861 of black and white in America, race prejudice, 1867 of English in India, 1869 of white and black in America, 1870 of the English towards Irish were used, and especially in 19th century, used political context, Negrophobia, Anglo-Saxonism, as belief in the superiority of the English race had been used disparagingly from 1860, anti-Negro. That's what racism is, anti-Negro. The description, the adjective is attested in British and American English from 1819. So you can't call a Negro, quote unquote, you can't call the Israelite who's out there preaching the word of God based on their own information of knowledge. You can no longer say that a quote unquote Negro is on the corner preaching hate, preaching racism. That's something only they do based on their own definition. It's called racism is called anti-Negro by their own definition. Just like the famous, I forget the lady's name, she's a European, older lady with white hair, short white hair. And she's always telling you that the quote unquote Negro can never be racist, not even preaching hatred. He said, according to her, she said, the quote unquote Negro is only preaching not retaliation either. He's preaching what's the term she used? Reactionism. So that's the only thing you can accuse a quote unquote Negro of doing, being reactionary. We just read that here in this book here, Revealing America's Dark Skin Past. And I can vouch for this. Most every quote unquote Negro or Israelite, American Israelite is what I call this, according to the word of the Most High, but I can't put that title on anybody that don't want to receive it. But the Most High said, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face. He said, if you call yourself any other thing, he ain't gonna hear from you. You ain't gonna hear from him. He said, but if you do what he told you to do, he said, then you shall hear, I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive your sin, and then I will heal your land, give your land back to you. That's why I said, on the elect you'll have achieved it. Because we return back to the Father, calling ourselves what he called us. Seeking his faith through study, not so we can study to show ourselves approved before the Most High. Not being ashamed. Reading the back of the book of this book here now, I'm reading to you again, called The Revealed America's Dark Skin Past, even by their own acknowledgments, Christopher Columbus and them. They do, however, tell in great detail of the carnage that they took place on the islands during Columbus' reign. And while they was doing that, they also describe in detail of the hospitableness of the indigenous people, the Negroes, quote unquote. The gentle nature of the indigenous people until they had to defend themselves. That's called reactionary. Same thing that quote unquote white educator said. Same as the definition. We cannot be racist or any other thing. More, if anything, we're reactionary. That's called defense, self-defense. Because they said we always been gentle of nature until they had to defend themselves. And that the indigenous people were considered Negroes. So I don't want to hear no other Israelites you hollering that people is Uncle Toms and different things, but then you hollering hate them Negroes in the corner preaching hate. You might be an Uncle Ruckus talking like that. I've shown you through knowledge that the Israelites are not racist or hateful. They're only reactionary. And we're not violent. We're going to be reading information. Am I showing violence? No. I'm methodically breaking down scriptures with other supporting information that supports what the Word of God says. Intelligently, I might add. No violence, no threat of violence. Only time if I read what the Most High threatened to do, that's him. He said that. That's not me preaching violence. The Most High is just. He's gonna reward you for what you've done. Out of retaliation or out of justice. Because he said, vengeance is mine. He said, I will repay. He didn't tell us to repay nothing. He just told us as his mouthpieces to speak his word. That's all I'm doing. Racism, once again, by 1928 in common use from 1935, originally in a European context. Racial supremacy as a doctrine, the theory of that human characteristics and abilities are determined by race. See racist and compare the various senses in race and racialism. Let's see what racialism is. I don't think I touched that yet. Oh, I did. Tribalism. Racism, this meaning the nationalism is no sense implies any consent to the doctrine of racism. See? You threaten when somebody gets on here and says, like myself, I'm an American Israelite, Aboriginal Indigenous. By the own definition under racism, it said this meaning of nationalism is no sense implies any consent to the doctrine of racism. Just because an Israelite is getting on here telling you that we're Israelites, that's what the Most High calls us, and we proclaim it, that don't mean that we preaching racism, even by your own definition. Only you can preach racism. European. Read it again. So I don't want to hear nobody ever say again that an Israelite is preaching racism or trying to have nationalism. Matter of fact, that's what it said under origin. Every man, as in the nations, has the right to seek the most honorable origin. The Most High said ours is Israelite and we're Americans because we came from the Garden of Eden. We didn't come from Africa. No disrespect if you in Africa, as they turn quote unquote Africa. I'm only speaking what the Most High showed us through his word that we came from America. And also, on the record, according to even your definition of racism, he said, this meaning of nationalism is no sense implies any consent to the doctrine of racism, which holds that unity of racial origin is the main principle of unity for civil society, and that the members of each ethnical branch should properly aim at grouping themselves together into so many national states. Although it is desirable that strongly felt national aspirations, which often depend on community of race, should be satisfied, as far as this may be compatible with justice. Racism or principle of racial self-determination as it has been called in recent years, is a materialistic illusion contrary to the law and destructive of civilization. James Strachey warns the universal aspect of fascism. See, even according to Webster, it's honorable to seek your most honorable origin. But the reason the European are considering is based on this information. The reason they use racism is because they take everything that's not theirs. And if you prove of where you really come from, it's going to show them to be the oppressors that they are. So they don't want that. They don't want that light to come to the light. But he said, my word is spirit and it is life. You can't stop his word. His word, it's time for the truth to come out. That's why it's out. Now, this information I'm bringing out, I don't really know as far as, because I really don't really hang out with Europeans like that. I've worked with some, but other than that, I don't really hang out with them like that. So I can't really call somebody names, say you and you and you and you, and that's not what this is about. This information is about the truth. That's why I told you, if you can't handle the truth according to the word of God, which is the truth, with supporting information to prove what he says is the truth, you shouldn't watch this thing. Because I'm not coming against you as a personal beef with anyone, but this is the word. The word, if you don't like the truth, you're not going to like it. Back to Grandmothers, chapter 1, verse 99. And it came to pass that as I sat pondering these things, I could see that the children of Yasakad and Kava, Adam and Eve, were the very first indigenous people wherever they spread themselves. And they arrived at their destinations without the skills and understanding and language that were developing with those who remained behind. For some, I'm sure this disadvantage brought hardship into the lives of their people. As I pondered, I began to realize that I had witnessed elements of racism before with the Urim, but I had not understood what I was seeing. And I said, Yahweh Shai, please show me the origins of racism. I thought this was all they had about it. But he told me today when I was looking for something else, he said, son of man, let me show you something else. That's why I'm bringing it to you today when I get there. And as I pondered, I began to realize that I had witnessed elements of racism before with Urim, but I had not understood what I was seeing. And I said, Yahweh Shai, please show me the origins of racism and teach me concerning this matter. And I asked this because I had often been exposed to this very kind of prejudice in my own experiences with indigenous peoples. And it often sorrowed in my heart for the way they were viewed. And as I said these things in my heart, the spirit of Yahweh Shai rested upon me and reminded me that with the first 7 generations of mankind in the first great 70, the scope of both righteous and wickedness will come to be set in place in the definition of them. And what was determined during that period will remain in place for the duration of the course of the earth. She said, racism ain't going nowhere no time soon. Until the Most High end this thing as we know it. never to vary away from that which was found to be established both among men and the sons of heaven during that time. And I immediately recalled how Mahuya, who was seen to be indigenous by those who hunted with him, was treated with much disdain. And now I see that because of how he was dressed in his religion and his manner of behavior, he was derided and looked down upon and treated with rudeness. And that feelings was very familiar to me. And now I can see that what happened to him was the same as it is to this very day. Stop lying, talking about, oh, everything's is different. No, he said to this very day. And it ain't never going to work till the Most High come and do what he gonna do. He's already started the process. That's why he made them do their confessions. And the enemy of all men and everything good had established this great evil of racism, clear back to the second generation of mankind. And I was astonished to now understand the long duration of that which became known as racism. And I said, Yahushua, please show me more. And I began to understand that basic to the intent of evil was for to identify the righteous native peoples of the earth in this way. And it came because of the very reason that they had within their hearts and lives embedded some original teachings of our first parents, to always use the elements of the earth in such a way as to acknowledge the spirit of life they had been given, and to not vary away from the established relationship set forth in the beginning of man in Eden. And this trait was seen by the adversary as central to that which threatened him and his power over mankind. And I saw that early in the pathway of man, clothing became a way. All right. Let me, instead of going that way, let me go ahead and go to the new information I found. The Most High showed me. But this is what really the first great war in heaven was all about. The first book of Aki. Verse 1. Now behold, listen and learn a great mystery of life. You learn how to determine a godly lifestyle and a clean heart. Those of you who are in the midst of a wicked world awake, and behold the knowledge of God in the last days, and be empowered over sin. And be endowed unto righteousness and oneness with God in your daily walk. Search out these things, for they have been hidden from you, but now they are come before your eyes. And those who desire to serve God and have groped to find a way have come upon a blessing from the hand of God. And it came to pass that I sat before the Urim and I looked, and I saw a sunbathed gentle hillside. And I saw a sunbathed gentle hillside, and as I looked about to see, I realized I was seeing where Adam and Eve dwelt in Eden. We just showed you that was America. And Eve was sitting on a rock with her feet in the clear water. And it came to pass that a falling star streaked across the sky. Luke 10, 18 through 24. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the powers of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding, in this rejoice not, that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. And in the hour, Yahushua rejoiced in the spirit and said, I thank you, O Father, Master of heaven and earth, that you have hid these things from the wise and the prudent, and has revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for so it seemed good in your sight. All things are delivered to me of my Father, and no man knoweth who the Son is but the Father, and who the Father is but the Son, and he whom the Son will reveal him. I had a dream one night that was on my mind because I thought about how Kobe was, I'm using Kobe again, Kobe was a great player, probably the greatest of his time. And if he would just use this, if he'd have had a way to come up with his own style, you probably can prove it. But then when you look back at the pictures, you always see him with the exact same images as Michael Jordan. So if you say, what was Kobe's signature move? All you can say was Michael Jordan's image. Some say, and he was showing me in the dream when I dreamed it, he said, in so many words, this is no blasphemy I'm just using a type to show what I'm saying. Michael Jordan was first. Kobe came after him. And he was created in Michael Jordan's image. No blasphemy intended. That's why Yahushua said, my Father is greater than I am. I'll do the work that I see my Father do. So in other words, he's saying, if you really look at my lifestyle and my works, one of his disciples said, show us the Father. He said, have I not been so long with you and you tell me you have not seen the Father? Because I only use my Father's signature moves. Everything I do is like my Father. And you mean to tell me you ain't seen him? I can't take on, I got to acknowledge that my Father is greater than me because I'm in an exact likeness, image, and likeness. There's no difference between them. I only use his moves. That I saw him do. Luke 10 and 22. All things are delivered to me of my Father. And no man knoweth who the Son is but the Father. And who the Father is but the Son, and he to whom the Son will reveal him. And he turned them unto his disciples, and he said privately, blessed are the eyes which see the things that you see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see the things which you see. You about to see some stuff today that maybe you have not seen before. And I have not seen them, and to hear those things which you hear and have not heard them. Verse 3, the words of Gokoham III. Search out these things, for they have been hidden from you. But now they come before your eyes, and those who desire to serve God and have groped to find a way have come upon a blessing from the hand of God. And it came to pass as I sat before the Urim, and I looked, and I saw a sun-bathed, gentle hillside. As I looked about to see, I realized I was seeing where Adam and Eve dwelt in Eden. And Eve was sitting on a rock with her feet in the clear water. And it came to pass that a falling star streaked across the heavens and lit up the evening as bright as day. And the meteorite landed with a crash, and the smoke of burning near the place where Eve was. And Eve was frightened. Note at the bottom, this was her first experience with fear. And with a shriek, she fled from before it. And it came to pass that I looked, and I beheld the iridescent rock in the middle of the hillside. Etymology Online Dictionary, iridescent, description of it, adjective. Literally rainbow colored. See, Satan always has a opposite meaning of what the Most High created to be. Most High said, I will set up the rainbow as a sign that I will want to destroy the world again with water. Today they use the rainbow to represent an abomination before the eyes of the Most High. That's Satan. 1784, literally rainbow colored, coined from Latin iris, genitive iris, rainbow, see iris. The verb iridescence is a back formation related to iridescently. Iridescence from iridescent. All right. So let's go to iris. Late 14th century as the name of a flowering plant, Iris germanica. Early 15th century in reference to the eye membrane. From Latin iris, plural iritis. Iris of the eye, iris plant, rainbow. A rainbow, also iris plant, is iris of the eye, a word or of uncertain origin. Traditionally derived from pi root, way, to bend, turn, twist. Iris was the name of the minister and messenger of the Olympian gods, small gods, especially of Hera, visibly represented by the rainbow, which was regarded as a descent of a celestial messenger. From the oldest part of the Iliad, the word is used of both messenger and the rainbow. The eye region was so called early 15th century in English for being that part that gives color to the eye. The Greek word was used of any brightly colored circle, as around the eyes of a peacock's tail. Liddell and Scott, another sense of Middle English was prismatic rock crystal, related to iridium iodine. Iridium, silver, and white metallic elements. English chemist Smithson Tennant, 1761 to 1815, from Greek iris, genitive iridos, rainbow. IUM, so-called from the strikingly variety of colors which it gives while dissolving in marine acid, Tennant. Way, Proto-Indo-European, root meaning to turn, twist, bend, with derivatives referring to suppleness or binding. All right, let's see where else I'm going. All right. Back to verse 4 of the word of Gokerham III. Book of Remembrance, first and second book of Aki. Verse 4. And it came to pass as I sat before the Urim, and I looked, and I saw a sun-bathed, gentle hillside. And as I looked about to see, I realized I was seeing where Adam and Eve dwelt in Eden, and Eve was sitting on a rock and with her feet in clear water. And it came to pass that a falling star streaked across the heavens, and it lit up the evening as bright as day. And the meteorite landed with a crash in the smoke of burning near to the place where Eve was. And Eve was frightened. This was her first experience with fear. And with a shriek, she fled from before it. Just imagine when you see Yahweh Shai and the host coming through the sky, but filling the whole sky, not just one. When Satan fell, she ran when she saw it coming out the sky. But now you're going to see clearly when Yahweh Shai and the host come with him. If Eve is running, you know there's going to be some running and some wiping of behind and everything. And it came to pass that I looked, and I beheld the iridescent rock in the middle of the hillside, with its skid marks and small craters from its landing. Now, as I beheld a strange thing happen, I began to hear the thoughts in the field, and thoughts to feel the feelings of the things in this scene through the eyes of God. And their private feelings and speech, one with the other, were made known to me, and I was amazed. For here in the midst of the presence of the Holy One in Elder, God's home, rocks and clumps of grass and flowers, and bushes scattered about, and with the dark multicolored iridescent rock in the middle. And they all knew each other. But the meteorite was a stranger. See, that's no. See, that he told you everybody was dark skinned in the beginning. But the meteorite was a stranger. Satan was a stranger. And the wind and the hill and the stream conversed among themselves. But the rock lay silently dazed at the sudden change that had come upon him. And he intruded upon them. See, Satan had a change come upon him. He was dark-skinned at first. And he intruded upon them, and they felt the violence of his arrival. And all that were there were quiet in his presence. And they held their peace. And it came to pass as new days dawned, all could behold his many colors as they shone forth from him, and changed with the movement of the light of God. And after a while, the rock stranger, see, there's two types of rocks, the rocks of witness and this strange rock. See, when everything about Satan is strange. And after a while, the rock stranger spoke to them all. And I could feel that in his heart, he felt unsure of himself. And he felt a little afraid and insecure, and his travels suddenly come up to an end. And he burst forth into a world that was unknown to him. And I beheld as he felt inferior, he spoke with bluffing tone. And he said, I am better than all of you. I am a traveler and I have wandered the far reaches of creation. And my name is Semahiza, which means my name has seen. For I've seen the wonders that lie beyond, but who are you? You have always just lain here upon the hillside. My mother is a comet, and she travels whithersoever she chooses, and has no fixed course like the lowly sun. He lying. And stars and heavenly bodies. I am beautiful and colored with iridescence. But you are just plain old brown and gray. Simple search. Earth shades create the most timeless in all color schemes, as they're all drawn from nature itself. Each tone colors are olive, charcoal, brick, brown, tan, leaf, and green. Is gray an earth tone color? Gray, brown, taupe are earthly type colors in today's marketplace. Gray is an earth tone. Satan said, Semahiza said, I am beautiful in color iridescence, but you are just plain old brown and gray rocks. And your mother is an old broken down mountain. Let's go see what else says something like that. Ezekiel 35. Moreover, the word of Yahweh of the law came unto me, saying, Son of man, Set your face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it. And say unto it, this says Yahweh Shai, the highest. Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against you. And I will stretch out my hand against you, and I will make you most desolate. I will lay your cities waste, and you shall be desolate, and you shall know that I am the Lord. Because you has had a perpetual hatred and has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the times of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Our judgment is over from the Most High. But they still try to judge you and try to condemn you, even though their rule is over. Therefore, as I live, says Yahweh Shai the highest, I will prepare unto you blood, and blood shall pursue you. Since you have hated blood, even blood shall pursue you. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it that passes out of it, that comes from Mount Seir, from children on to returning, and him that returneth. I will fill this mountain with his slain men in your hills, and in your valleys, and in your rivers shall they fall that are slain with the sword. I will make you perpetual desolation, and thy city shall not return. And you shall know that I am the Lord. Because you have said these two nations, the southern kingdom and northern kingdom, and these two countries, Africa and America, shall be mine. And we will possess it, whereas the law was there. So he's telling you they know exactly who they was oppressing, because they know the law was there. That's why they call you African American. Therefore, as I live, says Yahweh Shai the highest, I will do it according to your anger and according to your envy. He said, you're going to get down and get dirty with you, which you has used out of your hatred against them. And I will make myself, see, because Satan already told you back then when he first fell, he said, I'm better than all y'all. He said, y'all this earth tone color. I'm beautiful. I will make myself, who else they say is the standard of beauty in the world today? And I will make myself known among them when I have judged you. And you shall know that I am the Lord, and that I have heard all your blasphemies which you have spoken against the mountains of Israel. The mountains of Israel. Let's go back to the Word, chapter 1, verse 9. I am beautiful and colored with iridescence, but you are just plain old brown and gray rocks. And then he started playing the dozens. And your mother is an old broken down mountain. Ezekiel 35 and 12. And you shall know that I am the law, and that I have heard all your blasphemies, which you have spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, They are laid desolate, and they are given us to consume. They say, since y'all sinned against your God, that's why we're doing this to you, because he gave you to us to consume. He said, well, but y'all went too far. I didn't intend on you doing all that. Y'all continued even after their trouble was over. Lamentations 4:21-22. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwelleth in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto you. You shall be drunken, and shall make yourself naked. The punishment of your iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry you away into captivity. He will visit your iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover your sins. Ezekiel 35:13. Thus with your mouth you have boasted against me, and have multiplied your words against me. I have heard them. Thus says Yahweh Shai, the highest. When the whole earth rejoices, I will make you desolate. And you did rejoice at the inheritance of the house of Israel, because it was desolate. So will I do unto you that you shall be desolate, O Mount Seir, and all Idumea, even all of it, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Obadiah, verse 1. The vision of Obadiah, thus says Yahweh Shai, the highest, concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the law, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise you, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made you small among the heathen. You are greatly despised. The pride of thine heart has deceived you. You that dwelleth in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that says in her heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though you exalt yourself as the eagle, and though you shall set your nest among the stars, then will I bring you down, says the Lord. If thieves come to you, if robbers by night, how are you cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? That's what I'm trying to tell you. Esau don't stop. They just conquer and oppress. Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to you, would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau searched out? How is his hidden things sought up? He said he made himself naked. He was ready. All the men of your confederacy have brought you into the border. The men that were at peace with you have deceived you. And prevailed against you. They that eat your bread have laid a wound under you. There is none understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, says the law, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and the understanding out of Mount Esau? And your mighty men, O Timon, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. For your violence against your brother Jacob, shame shall cover you, and you shall be cut off forever. In the day that you stood it on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces. Satan is a stranger, right? Everything about him is strange. Even Cameo had a song one time. That's why he said don't marry their women. Because Cameo, he said, she's strange and I like it. But the Most High said, don't like that. But Cameo said, I like her just the way she is. In the day that thou stood it on the other side, in the day the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even you was at one of them, even though even you was one of them. But you should not have looked on the day of your brother in the day that he became a stranger. He became a stranger to the Most High because he learned the ways of Satan and got away from the law, statutes, and commandments. But you should have not looked on the day of your brother on the day that he became a stranger. Neither should you have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither should you have spoken proudly in the day of distress, trouble. How proud did he talk? Word, chapter 1, verse 9. I am beautiful and colored with iridescence, but you are just plain old brown and gray rocks. Your mother is an old broken down mountain. Obadiah 1 and 13. You should not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. You should not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. All right, let's go here. Seal portion, chapter 79, verse 1. It shall come to pass among the nations of this great European empire, which shall be formed from the other nations and kingdoms of the earth, that a group of people shall travel across the great oceans and establish themselves in the land of my fathers. Yet these shall begin to prosper exceedingly in all things. And there shall also be the rich among them, which shall become rich from the land, and the things that they shall take from the land of my fathers. Behold, the Lamanites, the American Israelites, shall be upon the land when it is discovered by the great European nations of the latter days. And at this time they shall be a humble people, having their own tribes and nations upon the land. And though the spirit of Yahweh Shai shall not be with them directly, they shall remember many of the teachings of their fathers and begin to establish peace among themselves, according to their traditions and customs, which should be passed down to them from their generations to generation. And it shall come to pass that Lucifer shall influence the discovery of the land of promise, which is filled with all manner of precious things, which are the desires of this great and abominable church, which I have spoken. And when the promised land is discovered by the people of the great European empire, They should begin to search for gold and silver and for anything that is of value to them. And it should come to pass that they shall begin to destroy the American Israelites, the Lamanites, and take from them their lands and force them into places which are desolate and void of the precious things that these European nations desire. And the American Israelites, the Lamanites, shall begin to dwindle in number and lose their nations, their people, and their lands to the effects of the lusts of the great and abominable church. And the men who shall destroy the American Israelites, the Lamanites, shall think that they are doing God a service. Yahweh Shai prophesied this in his day. John 16:2. They shall put you out of the synagogues. Yeah, the time, the churches, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think they're doing God a service. See a portion, chapter 79. And 9. And the men who shall destroy the Lamanites, the American Israelites, shall think that they are doing God a service because they believe. Now you get into their doctrine. We just showed you that it was called based on racism, oppression. And since Yahweh Shai prophesied about that, he let you know that he had dark skin. He was also down the righteous line of Adam, who was indigenous, wherever they found themselves. And he was called a quote unquote Negro. That's why they called his disciples nigger. And the men who should destroy the Lamanites shall think that they are doing God a service because they believe that the Lamanites, the American Israelites, and all those who are of a dark skin are those who have been cursed of God and not worthy of the full blessings of the Father. And this wickedness shall be taught unto them by their leaders and their priests. That's why I told you. And this wickedness shall be taught unto them by their leaders and their priests, who are all servants of Satan and shall follow his will in all things. This is why he said this in verse 65. Verse 2. And the true saints of God, well, these American Israelites, all these people of dark skin, these quote unquote Negroes, who were his elect. So all of his elect were the dark skinned Negroes, quote unquote, were persecuted and slain by the hands of the Romans and by the consent of those leaders of the Christian faith. So we ain't never been Christian. Who had made alliances with the Romans and the other governments of the earth. Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 13. You should have not entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. You should not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, and nor laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither should you have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Neither should you have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress, of trouble. In the day of Jacob's trouble, you shouldn't have stood in the way. You shouldn't have done all these things. For the day of the law is near upon all the heathen. As you has done, it should be done unto you. Your reward should be returned upon your own head. For if you have drunk upon my holy mountain and said that bad things about Word chapter 1, verse 9, I am beautiful and colored with iridescence, but you are just plain old brown and gray rocks. And your mother is an old broken down mountain. For if you have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Remember he said he's going to give them over to blood since they love blood. For you have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall the heathen drink continually. Yeah, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. So you can get rid of all the traces of it, except for the remnant, called by his name to go into to fulfill verse 15. For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen, as you have done, it should be done unto you. Your reward shall return upon your own head. For you have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall the heathen drink continually. Yeah, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. So everything that you got, including yourself, we're going to own it. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame. That's what we are right now. We've been a light to the Gentile, the true Gentile. A lot of people was preaching from the standpoint, oh, we got to walk right before you. We got to be a good example. No, that's not what we're talking about. The house of Jacob should be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. We prophesying against Esau. That's how we've been a light to him. So now you got you got Christianity. We ain't preaching Christianity. And they shall kindle in them and devour them. That's the light that you get to give you the real interpretation of what he's saying. And there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the law has spoken it. And they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau. And they of the plain of the Philistines, and they shall possess the fields of Ephraim, and the fields of Samaria. And Benjamin shall possess Gilead. It's going to be all Israelites. Right now, you got Israelites mixed with people, mixed with different in lands and people in their land. But now it's going to be the meek shall inherit the earth. And the captivity of this host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath, and the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Shaharat, shall possess the cities of the south. And Savior shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau. That's the 144,000. High priests, judges. That's why he told us to prophesy against Mount Seir. If you ain't doing this, you're not a part of 144,000. You're not the elect. How can you save somebody the Most High say you're going to destroy? And you say you're working for the Most High? I'm not talking against nobody in particular, but I am talking about you if you're doing opposite of the Most High, what he's telling you to do. You're not working for the Most High if you're not prophesying against Mount Seir. That's your job. And Savior shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau. And the kingdom shall be the laws. So how are you going to say opposite of what the Most High is saying if you say you work for the Most High? Word chapter 1, verse 10. And it came to pass that all those that were before him were embarrassed at his haughtiness. And they were ashamed before the presence of the Holy One. And at the first, had they had legs, they would have fled before him as did Eve. But as times passed, some of the younger rocks began to desire to hear the wonders of his travels. See, now he's starting his own religion about how great he is. And they were attracted to his talk and desired to be associated with his appearance. And it came to pass that the wind began to bear the message and to send the news abroad that in the midst of Eden, in the presence of God, there was one who would compare and place the value and worth of one above another. And all creation in Eden for the very first time was introduced to the sin of superiority and the judgment of value being thrust upon living souls. And thus were the seeds of racism, war, and death beginning to be sown. And all who did not pay him heed to listen and partake of his haughtiness were pure and holy. And they stood firm with the vision of their created purpose. But some rocks began to relent. And they began to desire to listen to this rock stranger and his rebellion against God. And the thing greatly troubled all of Eden. For it was known to them that every hill and tree and stream and rock were created by the loving hand of the Son of the Highest. He did not divide his love in so much that he would love one above another. But Semihizer rebelled and would that he could pretend to hide the oneness of God. Now understand that what passed between all these before me were not words that are familiar with man in his temporal state, but they spoke to one another by the power of the feelings of their hearts, that resulted in them receiving life in the day of their creation. And it came to pass in the time some of the rocks believed Semiza, and were influenced by him and began to feel ashamed of their mothers, and began to view their lives as dull and of no value, compared to this strange, multicolored traveler. See, that's where religion get there. Everybody gonna be saved. We invite everybody. And Semiza said, "Oh, y'all just a plain old brown." Today, you go to a Christian church. He's the God of every nation. They boast in. We invite all people. And begin to view their lives as dull and of no value compared to this strange, multicolored traveler. And those who were drawn to him began to ask him to rehearse the wonders of his travels to them, and they began to hold him up as the most important rock. That's why the Most High said, Hawashai said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all Israelites to me. And they began to hold him up as the most important rock upon the hillside, or even all of the regions around about. And it came to pass that those whom he confided in listened to the grand adventures he told, and began to feel superior to all those around them that chose not to pay him heed. And in the course of those days, they became dissatisfied with the vision of their created purpose. And Semiza said to a rock beside him, "How are you called little one?" Enoch. That's what they call Enoch, little one. Salakia. They did call him little one, but he's talking about somebody else right here. I'm looking at it right now. "How are you called little one?" And he answered, "My name is Atagath, which means the earth is power. For all things are created by the power of the love of God in the earth." And Semiza replied, "Oh no, that will never do. You are copper. You were created to rule over all the host of men. Copper colored. And you can be great in the sight of all the earth. For you shall bring them pleasure and power and abundance. And they will greatly desire you and worship you. And in this thing, the love of God is done away. In this manner did Semiza give all who will listen lying visions. And he prospered and practiced in the midst of the holy Eden, in the sight of God. And it came to pass that after Semiza began to corrupt the vision of any who would listen, that Eve came upon this scene, for she had become frightened. And when Semiza landed, and she had not come this way for some time. And as Eve walked some distance away from all of this, she heard the rocks talking about the stranger. And she felt the vision between them. Some were drawn to Semiza, and some were repulsed by his rebellions against God. And they loved God and would not displease him. And as Eve drew near, she felt like she must choose between them. Finally, after a time, she felt curious and went meekly and shyly upon a bush and peeked around at the stranger, and he was beautiful. She had never seen an iridescent rock like him before. Man, in other words, you could say he was a rock star. And he was exotic to his surroundings. And he talked and acted like he was from far away, where Eve had never been. No mountain had any rock like him. And Eve listened to Semahiah. And Eve listened as Semahiah told his stories of grandeur. He had illusions of grandeur. And she felt drawn to him because he felt from far away and he was beautiful. These two feelings had never entered the heart of Adam before, and his rib was created to be the feelings of his heart, made flesh. And she was afraid, for she felt a part of herself become a stranger to her husband. And as it happened, Adam began to notice that all the rocks were not acting towards Eve as they had before. Some were quiet around her because Eve was changing. And in his heart, he began to sense a division among them and between himself and Eve. And this was a new and very alien feeling never before to confront him, and he was troubled. It's like, this is real life. You got your woman, and all of a sudden this flamboyant cat come around, and although she said, "Oh, I'm with you," but yet you can see that she with him. You gotta pick her mouth up. Her mouth open. Close your mouth. And it came to pass that Adam told Eve never to visit the rock stranger again. He said, "I sense a division, and the thing surely will displease God." And the rocks among the Ekadasha, upon hearing Adam, who was made in the image of God, began to be greatly ashamed. And they were thus the first in the earth to cry out for a redeemer. And they wept and cried out for one who could deliver them from their shame. For it was one in their midst, even one of their own kind, that at first dishonored the love of God and brought a division unto the abode of God. And from that day, the rocks of the Ekadasha have ceased not to cry out continually before the face of the great Holy One, for one who redeemed them and erased their stain and pollution in the midst of the paradise of God. And Ebedel was the first to bring their voice. See? It tells you, if you read it styles these holy watchers as females, but it's really those called to the class of that anointing. And in the midst of paradise of God, and Ebedel was the first to bring their voices. See, if it was just one female, why do they have voices? And Ebedel was the first to bring their voices unto the ears of God. requesting him to bring salvation. And they cried, "Come, God, come and save us, for our shame is too great for us to bear. Why, oh, why did it have to be one of our kind who brought this great dishonor upon us in your sight?" And God said, "I will have a son, and by his hand I will send Michael, who is one anointed to save you. For there is coming a great war in heaven." And it came to pass that Shemaiah began to be lifted up in his own eyes. And he took great delight in the pleasure of his own glory. And he prophesied and said, I shall be a many named one, yeah, even the Son of God. And in the course of the earth, he indeed came to have many names to describe his filthiness. For he is called Shemaiah, Satan, Belial, Phosphor, Beelzebub, Prince of Darkness, and Melchizedek. I'm not calling you. I rebuke you. I'm not calling you for. Stay you far away. And he began to fight against God, insomuch that he took upon himself to reveal a vision of his own glory to any of the watchers who would listen. And he would proclaim with great and swelling acclamation that the vision of created purpose given by God to some watchers were unsatisfactory. And he would lie and invent for them a vision of self-glory. Now, Yahweh Shai, the highest, when he created all things, he had seen that all things were good. And Shemaiah had been created with a good and wonderful vision. And in his vision of created purpose was for him to see the glory of the highest as it feels the immensity of creation, and to be the herald of the preeminence of legitimacy of the word of his power. Because Messiah is indeed what his name has been. But this watcher rejected this great vision, and he would not honor the word of his power. And he invented a lie to replace it. And he now claimed to be the herald of the power and the legitimacy over the world of pleasure. And it came to pass that one by one he began to replace the visions of any who would listen to his lies. And thus he became known as the father of lies. Still Book of Moses, chapter 3. I'm going to go there. Okay, I'm a little farther than I intended. I'm almost there. Remember, he was known as the father of lies. The header, chapter 3, still Book of Moses, chapter 3. Having been Moses caught up from the principal, saw the angel Ahiah become miserable and proposed to himself that all humanity would also be miserable just like he. and with that began to lie and deceive the first parents of mankind. Eve and Adam succumbed under the influence of this evil being that was expelled of heaven. Adam receives the priesthood of the Son of God, and with him the law of the priesthood and the promise about his righteous seed after him. Abel fulfills the requirements required by law for how much Cain is induced for priestly tricks, commences false worship among his fellow men. Abel becomes the first prophet to seal with blood his work on the earth. Seth is born and spreads the gospel and priesthood through his offspring. That's how we got the books of remembrance, the sealed books, and everything we have, including the Bible. Sealed book of Moses, chapter 3, verse 1. And so happened that Moses was caught up on a mountain extremely high, and came to Mount Zion in the heavenly Jerusalem, and obtained knowledge of all things that were from the beginning to record what he saw and heard in the sealed book that was found by Hilkiah, together with the book of the law, the Bible, the book of the law, in the days of Josiah, king of Judah, which Lehi brought into this land. This is the book of the law. First Aki, chapter 4, verse 106. And it came to pass that the people were desirous that Moses should rehearse unto them all the doings of Yahushua that had transpired among them in his day. And Moses attempted to rehearse unto them all that had been done under his hand, but only a few old people could still speak and understand the language of the king. And what he rehearsed unto them became known as the book of the Barium. Note at the bottom, see Strong's 1697, words known to us as the book of Deuteronomy. It was first called the book of the Barium, which by interpretation is perhaps the words that are known of God, and all of what was spoken by Moses was written from memory by the people many years afterward in the land of Israel. All right, let's see. All right. And heard in the sealed book, where from the beginning began to record what he saw and heard in the sealed book that was found by Hilkiah, together with the book of the law, in the days of Josiah, king of Judah, which Lehi brought into this land beyond the sea, in order to preserve its record for future generations of priests of the holy order of the Son of God in the final part of the fullness of time. It was then that Moses passed to be in a great universal meeting, in which Ahiah, the angel whose name means brother of Jehovah, or brother of Yahweh, greater leader who covered in his suspension the class of anointed cherub, chief commander of the flaming stones, until the day he was demoted from his office and the supervision of heavenly visits to the sons of man, was delivered to the angel Gabriel, who commanded them by too much generations of Israel when they were walking by the circuit of the heavens, which chariots of fire visited the prophets of God, full of wisdom and proceeding from highest case of order of the stars Dalva, had full access to Mount Zion until the day he overturned the old covenant and vehemently accused the great Yahweh of usurping the rights of free agency, of free will, and all being created by him in the vast expanse of the universe. For how much he himself came seeking to destroy free will of man from the beginning. And so, because he had been full of pride and vanity, assumed an air of grandeur. Same thing that the book of Remembrance said. And came to desecrate his own wisdom by deposing in his heart that he would be accepted by God in the highest, an immaculate cradle of creation, after arousing appreciation of a vast multitude of followers. First of those whom he led astray in the heavens and now on earth. And so he longed to return to the holy mountain of meetings and to take his place among the council of the heavens, which are above the holy angels, in the likeness of God, but beneath the sovereign Yahweh Shai, the Almighty, which cannot overrule the ordinances established by him in the heavens, of that the domination of the earth would be in subjection to his son Ahiah. Then even before the foundation of the world, that was given the dominions of the kingdom of mankind, and with that he came to be in Eden, the garden of God. Being that man had been created in the image of God. See, there's two different types of man. Man, the one the Most High say was spittle in his face to him. He's another one who spittle to him. And then you have the man that was created in his image. Meaning that man had been created in the image of God, reflecting in itself its divine attributes, namely love, wisdom, creative potential, and justice. Had also been created according to his likeness, thus obtaining characteristics similar to the image of its creator, coming to be an immortal creature. For how much were subject to themselves all creatures that move in heaven and on earth and in the sea. But they had themselves all creatures that move in heaven, the earth, and in the sea, but they had been commanded to fertilize and fill the earth and to expand the boundaries of Eden, expand the boundaries of America. See how they corrupt the word, though? He told us to be fruitful and multiply, but they took it, because he already said they don't have no understanding to spiritual things. They took it to go and mean go take everything and conquer it. That's what Edom does. Since they were trying to be us, they said, no, well, God meant for us to go and take everything. But it came to pass at Ahiah, when he sought to do that which was evil before God, he was cast out of the highest, an immaculate cradle of the heavens. Yeah, from that holy mountain of God to heavenly. That's why he said, your mother is just an old mountain. from the holy mountain of God to heavenly Zion. However, he had not yet been expelled from the heavenly realms, since he periodically made himself present at the universal meeting. That's how he showed up when he was talking to Job. He had not yet been told not to come back. In order to present a report of his administration concerning this world, which was under his dominion. Therefore, it was at the beginning of human history on earth, after falling from his high position in the heavens, he became wretched before the children of God, and thereby proposed himself in subjecting all humanity to being unable to fully enjoy its free will, and thus condemn them to the same misery and decay that had been that he had been condemned. So that old serpent went on to deceive his brethren, who lived with him in the heavens, and so soon became an opponent to God's plan for this world. It happened that he went on to deceive the first human couple, still in Eden, still in America, the paradise of God, coming to become the father of every lie. And so was called the devil. Called devil. Word 1 and verse 26. Let's see. I think I already read that. Let me try. Word 1 and 25. Let's start there. And now Yahweh Shai, the highest, when he created all things, it seemed that all things were good. And Semahaza had been created with a good and wonderful vision. And his vision of created purpose was for him to see the glory of the highest, as it feels the immensity of creation, and to be the herald of preeminence and legitimacy of the word of his power. But Messiah is indeed what his name has seen. But this watcher rejected this great vision, and he would not honor the word of his power. And he invented a lie to replace it. And he now claimed to be the herald of the power and legitimacy over the world of pleasure. And it came to pass that one by one he began to replace the visions of any who would listen to his lies. And thus he became known as the father of lies. And Yahweh Shai, the highest, had asked Adam and Eve to dress the garden and to keep it. And Adam often spoke of all their Kadashai, and he besought them to remain faithful to God in all their doings. And it came to pass that one day Eve approached a part of the garden where she had not seen or had not been. She came upon a serpent that was many-colored and iridescent, and had an appearance much like Semahiza. And she had been obedient to the will of God and had obeyed Adam and did not visit the rock stranger anymore. But a subtle change had occurred in her heart. And she found, she done been captivated by this strange. But a subtle change had occurred in her heart. And that's why the Most High don't like divorce. Because it separates you from him. Because you become one. That's why you can know something's wrong. Because now this woman no longer is a truly faithful to her husband no more. Most High can sense it, just like Adam can. And she had been obedient to the will of God and had obeyed Adam and did not visit the rock stranger anymore, but a subtle change had occurred in her heart. And she found that she could be attracted for the first time to something for how it looked. And because it felt like it was from far away. And since she had peeked at Semahiza, she had this change in her heart. And it stayed with her. Although she wasn't around him no more because she said, I gotta stay away from him because my husband says so. But she always thinking about it. Now the serpent, whose name was Nakash, which means to be diligently observed to see that the will of God is done. At the bottom, see Strong's 5172 and 5175. Some of this meaning has been lost in modern Hebrew. Which means diligently to observe to see that the will of God is done, was a good and holy watcher among the Egadasha. It was gentle and harmless, and it had legs, but when Eve saw and loved Nakash, these two subtle pollutants were in her heart, for Nakash was like unto Semahiza in his appearance. And Eve in her heart innocently felt drawn in her love for Nakash. To love him because he was beautiful to look upon. And because he was, to her, exotic. And she was unaccustomed to seeing one after his manner. And because Eve associated Nakash in her heart with Semahiza, Semahiza was able to speak to her by the mouth of the serpent with subtleties. And it came to pass that Semahiza said to Eve by the mouth of the serpent, Eve, know you not that God is better than you? And Eve replied, I know God is good and he is holy. And Semahiza said, there is a tree in the midst of the garden called cedar, which is given its life by the feelings of God, that fill the vision of your greatness. And this tree sees all the delightful things in our vision of created purpose. Eve said, I know I am the rib of my husband. And Semahiza said, God is better than you, for he knows to distinguish between good and evil. If you partake of this tree, you will become like God. And you too can know how to distinguish between good and evil. And Eve said, God is forbidden that we should partake of this tree. That's sex. To be fruitful and multiply. God is forbidden that we should partake of this tree, and if we did so, we should surely fail. And Semahiza said, God knows you will not fail, but your eyes shall be opened. And you will become like unto God to know good and evil. For he wants you to not partake of it so he can remain superior to you. And it came to pass that in her heart, Eve could feel the spirit that gave life to the cedar tree. And she felt sad in her heart that she had fallen short in the eyes of God. And when she felt the tree, she exclaimed with delight, for it did feel all the good in her heart that the Great One had put there. Wherefore she went into the fillings of the tree and filled herself with the knowledge of the goodness that was in her. by the hand of God in her creation. And the feelings of the tree seemed to take away her sorrow, that she had fallen short in the eyes of God, and it seemed delightful to her. And she went and brought Adam, and she said, "My husband, this tree fills all of the good the Yahweh Shai, the highest, had put into you in the day he created you. And if we will partake of it, we can feel like we are as good as God." And Adam said, "I know God has forbidden us to partake of the fillings of this tree." And he was greatly saddened, for he felt a gulf arising between him and his rib. And his great loneliness began to come once again upon him. And in his heart he cried out for fear of loneliness. And they both partook of the fillings of the tree. And she partook so she could be as good as God. And he partook for fear of loneliness. And it came to pass that when they had partaken of the tree of the eyes of them both were opened, and they beheld that they had been lied to. And they responded to the lie, and in doing so, they were not now like God, but were strangers to him. And when these things is transpired, see, that's what a lot of lying going on by Esau to the people they call African Americans, making you strangers to God. That's why I said, if my people will call by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, then will I hear from heaven, and once they repented, and then I will heal their land, give it back to them, give you back your history, give you back everything back to you, to know that you've been lied to. And when these things transpired, it was a very sober day in Eden, in America. For the object of creation, yet even that which was made in the image of God, had acknowledged Semihizer to obey him. And in this way, the very image of God took upon themselves a portion of one of who was rebellious towards God. And again, this was the power of Semihizer rose greatly, for now his soul was become the element of wickedness. And he was recognized by the image of God to be the alternative to God himself. He was recognized by the image of God to be an alternative to the God himself. And all the lying visions of those who followed after him were thus affirmed by our first parents acted inadvertently, and the glory of Semihizer was to be short-lived. And Adam and Eve did sin no more after their baptism of purification. So see Charles Opp site, volume 2, page 258 and 260 for account of baptism of Adam and Eve. And it came to pass that in the course of time there arose up one who empowered Semihizer to fully be an opponent of God, and to have power to wage war against his purposes. And that man was Cain. And while the sins of our first parents were inadvertent, the sins of Cain were inventions of his agency. They were intentional to establish and call forth by the use of element of wickedness that Semihizer would be the god of his religion in the occult. And Cain ruled over Semihizer, and they entered into a pact of sorcery. That Cain would establish Semihizer if he could gain the desire of his heart over his brother Abel. And it came to pass that Aziel, who is the one that the Decadachian is ascribed, is one of the Decadachian is ascribed 10th by his cunning, opened up to Cain the manner by which it could be accomplished, that he could kill his brother without drawing near to him. And thus the thing would not be known, and the guilt of Cain would not come forth, and the things could be kept secret in the midst of the earth. And it came to pass that Cain prayed evil and hateful prayers, and he used the altar of his father, and he used Azazel as the element of wickedness to call forth death unto Abel. And it came to pass that a stone of Azazel smote Abel, insomuch that he died, and Cain had not come near unto Abel, and had done nothing but to pray his hateful prayers against him. And a falling star fell upon Abel, and smote him that he died. And Cain knew he could say that the thing had occurred, but not by his hand. But Simhazer had deceived Cain, for he had not revealed unto Cain that the thing could not be hidden from God. And Cain was called to the account before him. And thus it was established by the intervention of agency that Simhazer and his religion would be the enemies to all things good. Your church. And the worship of God in heaven. And the end of, as Cain had killed with a rock, he was also killed by a rock. When the earth shook and the house fell upon him. And this event happened in the year that Adam had returned to Eden, to America. And the shaking of the earth was caused by the Ekerdashai in their rejoicing over the return of Adam. Charlesworth, Opsite, Volume 2, page 64, lines 31 and 32. To his natural home. And it came to pass that the war increased. What was the war? Racism. Oppression, even fight over skin color. I'm beautiful. You just plain old brown. And see, he had a coat of many colors. He invited everybody that would fight against these brown people, including some brown people, whoever listened to him. Same thing, religion. Whoever listened, y'all all come on in and give me your tithe. It's all beautiful. And it came to pass that the war increased and it grew, and there were many evil men who put their hands to the task of affirming the lying visions of Simhazer and his band. And they grew until Simhazer took with him 1/3 of the host of heaven, even to the number of 200 watchers, who rebelled to follow after him. And it came to pass that one arose who was a descendant of Cain, whose name was Lamech, which means to be instructed by darkness. And Lamech received instructions by the hands of the Dekadachai, starting with Simhazer himself. And Simhazer desired to beget children, and he chose Lamech. And Lamech had 2 wives. And he followed after the manner of the religion of Cain, and he was the first to enter into wickedness, of having more than one wife. Simhazer instructed Lamech that he, by the use of element of wickedness, by using a meteorite, and by drinking menstrual blood, noted at the bottom, see Jubilees, chapter 7 and 28, eating human blood, to conceive a child that was given by the power of the intervention of an agency, a lying vision, according to the choosing of Simhazer. All right, let's go on here. Talk about the religion. First Aki, at the bottom of 41 on down, 40 to on down. What is this awful scene? Why must I endure to behold it? And the vision stayed before him, and he said, and Yahushua said, do you not need to see the people unto whom your record will be revealed? And Aki said, yeah, Yahushua, but the vision is hard for me. And Yahushua said, what is it you see? And Aki said, the generations of the terrible. And Aki, strong man of God, beheld the full extent of the tragedy of it before the face of God. And he was moved upon clear to the center of his bones. And he said, and he saw that commencing with the impostor of Antioch, the wicked replaced the vision of the purpose of Messiah with the vision of Semahiah, of that Semahiah that had chosen for himself the image. And it came to pass that in this way they prayed to Semahiah and called him the Son of God. Same statement that's written in the book of Dead Sea Scroll. And he saw that Messiah would be in this way unknown to all the people of the nations except the righteous. Because the church is not showing you the true image of the Son of God. They got a European version showing you Satan, Semahiah's image. And Semahiah would be in his place in the doings and practices of the multitudes of the world. And all their terrible acts that are inspired by Semahiah would be said to be done in the name of Messiah. Yet even this lowly meteorite, who was a son of the morning, Seth, chapter 6. This is the book of remembrance of Enoch, the same book of Haggai. Seth, chapter 6, verse 18. And before he could answer, Kava said, whatever it was, it is a friend to no one. And it is not joined to creation. And Yasaka said, and Father, there is nothing that can be known about it for you to enter into to give it life. Note at the bottom. Yasaka, which is Adam, had already defined the meteorite, and Messiah had already entered into it. It had its original definition of a comet. This indicates that by the time Semahiah landed, he was already rebellious and sought to change his definition. By the time he was kicked out of his lofty place and got demoted, he had already decided to be wicked. Changes in definition are the origin of death. He was already a dead soul. The walking dead. Strong's 4131, 66, 96, and 97. First Aki, chapter 12, verse 43. And it came to pass that in this way they prayed to Semahiah and called him the Son of God. And he saw that Messiah would be in this way unknown to all the peoples of the nations except the righteous. And Semahiah would be in his place in the doings and practices of the multitudes of the world, religion. And all their terrible acts that are inspired by Semahiah would be said to be done in the name of Messiah. They're going to blame the Messiah for all the wars and all the terrible things happening that Satan is causing, but they're going to say, I don't want nothing to do with that Jesus, that Yahweh Shai, that religion. But you ain't never met the real Yahweh Shai. You was worshiping Satan the whole time. That's who the religions teach and preach to you. And all their terrible acts that are inspired by Semihizer would be said to be done in the name of Messiah. Yet even this lowly meteorite, who was a son of the morning, who would call himself the Most High, Ahia, and place his throne in the heights of the name of God. In this way, great evils were brought into the family of man. And Aki said, "Oh my Yahweh Shai and my God, how can such things be in the midst of your creation?" And he saw the wicked plundering and destroying and murdering in the name of God, who is the one who was filled only with loving kindness. And the poor and the righteous of the earth were swept before them in all the regions of the earth. And Yahweh Shai said, "Behold, when the vision of my son," or when Yahweh said, or the Most Highest said, "Behold, when the vision of my son was changed, his image, and the false vision or image was worshipped, it has become a formation of great and abominable religions. For these wicked, by means of a religion in the vision of Semihizer, have given their power to him. And they magnify his kingdom daily until it is grown to what you see before you, this great religion, Christianity and etc. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. And during this time, Aki beheld nation trampling nation." This is all the Europeans. "And there was the violence of warfare among all the people of the earth. And there were wars that encompassed the entire earth. And it came to pass that Semihizer gained a place in high standing among men by the lying vision that he gave unto Messiah, by the hand of the impostor, other false prophets." I might have went too far. Let me go back. Sealed portion, chapter 88, verse 45. "And the false prophet is all of the organized religions upon the earth." So when you hear about the false prophet, he's talking about all, because this is the ones that Semihizer lied to and put his image in them. "And the false prophet is all of the organized religions upon the earth that have been organized by the hand of man. that they might subject the souls of the children of God to their pretended precepts and commandments, which do not create peace and happiness, but strife and misery among all nations of the earth. So I'm going to end it there. All praises to the Most High for his truth. What I would tell you to do, for your consideration, whether you're an Israelite or Esau, I would just tell you to repent and get used to the truth. Because the Most High is not going anywhere until his kingdom comes completely. It's already here. But until it's established in the earth. Why do you say that? Because his word is the truth. The lie has already been told, but now the truth has caught up and has exposed the lies. And once the light is on to its fullness, the lie can't not remain. Therefore, the kingdom has no choice but to come. So you might as well get used to it. Because he's not going nowhere. Because his word is eternal and it must be fulfilled. Cannot fall to the ground until it's accomplished what it's set out to do. Because his word is eternal. So, all praises to the Most High. All praises to his holy and wonderful name. And shalom to those who deserve shalom. The next video, Most High said the same.